Yes, we're going. Right. Hello again. It's still Friday the 7th, Friday 6th of January, and I am just about to break my wrist opening this. Oh, blimey. Sample that was very kindly donated from Stuart and Kirsty of the Whisky Corner. So it's been a while since I've featured anything that they donated. So if you haven't checked out the Whisky Corner, which is I think whiskycorner.co.uk, I shall check that, and if it's wrong then I'll put the correct website address up here, which is they're a wonderful couple who need a lot of following and a lot of love because they're ace. And yes, go check them out if you've not. Fantastic blog, fantastic people. Do try and check them out. And they sent me currently one of the kind of in whiskies at the moment. It very much seems to be this and Kavalan, which is the Taiwanese whiskey. I think it's Mackmyra. I'm going to go with Mackmyra, but it might be Mackmyra. Mackmyra and Kavalan are the two sort of non-Scotch, non-American whiskies that everybody's raving about, and you know it's not quite hipster whiskey, but it's it's the in thing to be doing. Mackmyra are based in Sweden. So we've just done Finland, and we'll hop over. I don't even know what that strait isn't it? Is it the Bering Strait? I've no idea. That bit of water that basically splits the two, it was set up when 8 friends who went to the Royal Institute of Technology went on a skiing trip, and each of them bought a bottle of whiskey. And as they came together, they noted with interest that all of them bought Scotch, and began discussing the fact that it was a bit odd that Sweden didn't actually have its own whiskey. So the following year they set up a company and worked on essentially what they would need to do to be able to produce a Swedish whiskey. Worked on a number of recipes, whittled it down to 2. Excuse me, I feel like I'm going to burp. And in 2002 opened a distillery in an old mill and power station in a place called Mackmyra. Now, I have read in 2 different places what Mackmyra means or comes from, and it's either, if you read Wikipedia, it's something to do with owlet moths, whatever they are, moths that look like owls, I suppose, but according to the Whisky Exchange, Mackmyra means small mosquito, so pretty different thing, something to do with bugs, shall we say. So it's 2002 distillery opens, 2006 they launched their first whiskey, and it was I think it's Sweden. I don't know whether it's the case now, but then it was a case of certain alcohol stores, if not all of them, were actually state owned. And apparently their first release, with it being Swedish whiskey that was being sold in Sweden, sold out in 20 minutes. So as you can imagine, fairly popular. And they've basically grown. They've become more and more popular, and I'm seeing them in, not like going to many whiskey festivals, but the 2 or 3 whiskey festivals I've been to this year, Mackmyra have been there and have been very, very popular indeed. So apparently all the ingredients except for the yeast that they use come from within a 75-mile radius of the distillery, and they actually added a second distillery that was 6 miles away. I can't remember if I actually put the map up of where Mackmyra is, so if I didn't, because I can't remember, here is where Mackmyra is. It's actually a village in the Valbo district, and they opened a second distillery in 2011 that was 6 miles away, basically because they needed to increase production. It was becoming more and more popular. So very, very localized, very craft very crafty as a distillery, but is really growing in popularity and just getting bigger and bigger as a brand. So the one that I've got from Kirsty and Stuart. We've got some friends called Kirsty and Andrew, and I keep wanting to say that, but it's Kirsty and Stuart. Was their what you could call their core whiskey, I suppose, is called Bruck's whiskey. Now Bruck's did mean something, but when I went back to try and find out where it was that I'd read what I meant, couldn't find it. So it means something. Somebody will put something in the comments in terms of what it is. And this launched in 2010, so this is what the bottle looks like. It's 41.4%, and you are looking at not a massive 41 quid, which isn't too bad. Both the Whisky Exchange and Master and Malt are selling this for 41 quid. It's unaged. So in terms of sort of what the average age is, I don't know, to be perfectly honest. I think it's about 8, but I'm not 100% certain. And this is predominantly bourbon casks, and then essentially a finish in sherry casks, and then also apparently fresh Swedish oak casks as well. What they also do is Mackmyra, whatever you want to call it, they do a peated version. But the smoky version that they do is it's a combination of peat and also juniper twigs, strangely. So it's more of a wood smoke than a sort of traditional peat smoke as you'd find with Scotch. And they add some of that smoky whiskey that they do into this. So that's why I wasn't 100% certain as to whether to do the finished Tirunpelli first or this first, because what I don't know, having only literally just opened it and nearly broke my wrist doing so, is quite how smoky this is going to be. Now, fortunately, the Tirunpelli was not particularly smoky at all. So if there is any obvious smokiness to this, I won't have masked it with the one that I've just had previously. So I think this is the first Mackmyra that I've had. I don't think I've had it before. Even when I was at the whisky festivals this year, because I was behind a table actually helping out and dishing samples out, I never got to go round and sample them. So fairly certain this is the first one that I've had. Now, very, very pale colour. Very light, kind of, light white wine colour, particularly compared to the Tirunpelli, which was really dark. So if it is bourbon casks, that coloration, I'm guessing, I would assume they've not added any colour. So if it is bourbon casks, it could even be like second fill maybe, because it's not picked up an awful lot on there. And 41.4% as well, very specific, but on the lower end of your percentages. Now there's a slight spiciness to it. There's a bit of a sweetness to it. But I want to make a comment about something that I'm picking up on the nose. And it's a nice smell to me, but when I describe it, it's really going to put a lot of people off. But I'm going to be honest about what I'm picking up of it. But it's something that actually smells quite nice to me in a very, very weird way. So bear with me on this. Don't take this literally. Do not let this put you off, because it's actually quite a pleasant nose. But there is an element on the nose on here that reminds me very slightly of wet nappies. Not solids, good God no, but slightly warmed wet nappies when you're changing your kids. So if you haven't got kids, if you've never changed kids' nappy, you've got no idea what I'm talking about. But there's this weird, slightly sweet, it's quite a complex aroma that's somehow weirdly comforting. And I know it sounds horrible, and you're probably watching this going, what the hell are you going on about? But there is there is an element in this nose, but it's actually quite pleasant, because I've got how old is he now? 12-week-old son. So I'm changing nappies left, right, and centre. And fortunately, the vast majority I'm changing are wet nappies rather than anything else, although I do get the short straw on that as well. And I'll warn you, if you've got daughters and you haven't got a son, totally different thing changing nappies, because all of a sudden there's a whole different thing that you need to clean up. I'm digressing and really getting off track, and you really don't want to hear about that. But it's I'm doing a lot of nappies, and it's actually quite a pleasant aroma, weirdly. But you really wouldn't think that if you hadn't gone through that experience yourself. So it's quite a complex nose, and there is this kind of odd sweetness to it as well. Yeah, it really is. Now maybe it's just me, maybe I'm just checking there's not like a nappy lying around in the kitchen or something like that, but it's a surprisingly comforting, warming. It's quite delicate, but there is this really nice sweetness to it. And I think what it is almost the smokiness that they've added into that is giving it this weird complexity. And maybe it's because like this juniper twig smokiness that they use. It's a sweet smokiness, but there's something else as well. I really, really like this nose. I hope this is as good on the palate as it is on the nose, because for such a delicate nose, there's a fantastic complexity to it, and it works really, really well. There's like a sugariness, there's an almondiness, there's a warmth to it as well. I think that's great. I absolutely love that nose. Oh, that's wonderful. The sweetness continues. It doesn't taste of nappies, not like I've actually tasted a nappy. There is none of this weird. There is a lovely, sweet, delicate fruitiness to it. It's kind of grapey. There's a soft banana feel to it as well. In fact, there is bananas. Now I'm getting more and more like the foam bananas, those yellow sweets that you get, kid sweets. This is very much a kind of a comforting kids pick and mix sweet bowl. There's a lovely delicacy to it. There's a quite a gentle sort of hay character to it as well. It's silky smooth. It really is so easy to slip down. There's quite a nice finish to it as well. And I think I can pick up this slight juniper element. I know it's twigs. It's not even juniper berries or anything like that, but there is a slight berry element to it. That is gorgeous. I think that is absolutely fantastic. And for 41 quid, I'd snap it up. I think that's really, really good for the price. It's so easy drinking. Might be too light for some, might be too, arguably say, wishy-washy for some people that want more oomph and more character and you know, more sort of in-your-face characteristics. But for a delicate spring summer whiskey sitting in the sun, might even be worth trying it lightly chilled out of the fridge as well. I think that's absolutely fantastic. Really, really good. Not after dinner, but maybe kind of before dinner. Maybe, you know, this would be a really good replacement for something refreshing like a gin and tonic. If you got this out the fridge, put the bottle in the fridge and pour from the fridge, so it's just lightly chilled, so it's just slightly more refreshing. I think it would hold its own with that kind of element, not in the freezer, but out the fridge, just chilled a little bit. Yeah, I think in spring and summer, sitting in the sunshine with some friends, after you've eaten kind of a really nice salad with, you know, like salmon and feta cheese and a light salad, that sort of thing. Not a barbecue, nothing particularly heavy, but after a really light sort of summer evening meal, and then some of this afterwards with your friends sat in the garden in the sunshine, would work fantastically well. Really, really nice stuff. I love that. So Kirsty and Stuart, thank you so much for that sample. I think I may have got around to it at some point, but I'm really glad I've had it now. And it intrigues me to see what the others are like, because they seem to be another one of these relatively new distilleries that are trying new things. So they've got all sorts of releases out with various casks and finishes and ages and all this lot. But as a core whiskey for their range, that is fantastic. That is absolutely brilliant. And I'm pleased because I think I'd already got into my head that it was a bit of style over content, that it was so popular, not hey club levels of kind of style over content, but loads of people were raving about it. It was the in thing. People were, you know, kind of like, oh yeah, it's Swedish, oh it's really cool, man, oh yeah. And I just got the impression that it was probably not as good as people were saying, but actually it is really, really good. Great stuff. Right, that's me done. I need to edit and upload, so I shall see you at the next one. That's my dishwasher saying goodbye as well. See you at the next one. Cheers.